Hello, David. I know we're a little early, but we are trying to. I'm trying to get the stream going correctly,
We're a little bit early.
and we have two streams listed, so I got to get
No,
rid
we
of
don't.
the
I
one.
deleted one. It just went away.
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
everybody.
Hello, everybody. I am going to put a link for our Patreons
In
in
Discord.
Discord. So please wait. Copy.
I
And where is my Discord?
don't know where you put it. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's my line.
Hmm?
Mm.
Come on, Discord.
No
Start up.
idea where your Discord is.
Well, welcome. I hope everyone had a lovely weekend.
Yeah.
It's a long weekend in Canada because we'll be honoring our veterans.
Yep.
That's right.
It's the day.
What's that sound? Music.
Oh, don't worry about it. I'm working on it. Guys, don't worry. I'm working on it.
I hope that's
It's everywhere.
No, I just hope that it's royalty free.
Yep. It's already linked in the stream. That's
good.
Trying to get
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah, it definitely is.
All right.
Yeah, Remembrance Day, which means on what is it? Tuesday, Christmas starts. That's how it works in Canada. We go from Remembrance Day to Christmas starts.
Yeah, and Black Friday starts.
Yeah.
But for Thanksgiving, which we already had.
It's true, but Black Friday is an American thing, and then we just complained enough, and everybody does it up here now. Well, I don't know if "complain's" the right word,
but yes, hey. It's now everyone does it. So, for all our patrons, it is in the Discord now. So,
yeah,
please feel free to join.
Please join
if you are online. If not, we will just have our regular stream-ish and all that jazz. So
obviously we had some technical difficulties, but we worked them out. Audio's being weird. Yep.
Audio, you sound great.
Yours is fine. I just mean it was weird getting it going again.
Yeah, I think I have to make sure when I'm using the Streamlabs Studio stuff that I do not open the Rode app. Because
that sounds weird.
It seems like it's not happy when it's open. So
hashtag not sponsored. Just saying.
You're not wrong.
Although I think you could probably read the Rode on my mic too. I don't know. Oh, they put it at the front. There you go. It's right there. But not sponsored. That's actually clever of them, I gotta say. If there ever was good product placement, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you see it on mine? I don't think you can because I think it's on the top.
I think it's underneath the USB thing too.
No, it's definitely on the top. So
no, but I'm saying I can read Rode underneath your USB cable.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I can see it because I know what it looks like, but I just noticed my mic's upside down. So sorry if anybody has to stand on their head to watch the stream.
Well, you look like you're right side up, so I think we're good.
So we're gonna, if you do join the stream, which you're welcome to do if you're a patron, the link's in the Discord. I just gotta throw out some kind of ground rule stuff that we will start following. We get that not everybody is like a YouTuber and has like mics and cameras and all the things that we have, and iPhones are great to join on. Usually your computer is pretty good to join on. But we will kind of try to, in the future Patreon streams, protect the sanity of all of us. So if there's like bad, choppy audio, and that kind of stuff, mostly the audio, because we can mute the video channel and not show the video, just have the audio, which is fine. But if we do have some bad audio, we'll just like pop you out and maybe you can troubleshoot a bit and then pop you back in. But
Yeah,
that's
and we
something that will
can,
happen.
and if we let you know ahead of time that there's going to be a Patreon stream, we can try to troubleshoot some of that ahead of the stream. That way, we can figure out the best kind of way for you to connect and if it's going to work perfect. So that way, we don't have to troubleshoot during the stream.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like we want you to have success, obviously. Um because then you can join the stream and have fun. But there's obviously there's a limit to what we can um have on the stream. But that's neither here nor there. It's just kind of what we will do, and we will help you out if life is, as you know, hard because we do it every week almost.
We had an extended summer break, but yes,
Yes.
yes,
Extended summer. So our Patreon list has changed. We're gonna figure out how we're gonna throw it up. But
yeah.
since we don't have the updated list, I'm
But
just going to
but we
say
know
this.
who's there.
Yes,
So
but thank you to
so
everybody. Yeah.
well, we can let's call them out.
Yeah,
Thank you to
sure.
Jim.
You're supposed to
Thank
call
you
one out.
to well,
Go ahead.
thank you to Helge,
Mm-hmm.
who's at the top level, and everyone else that's on the list. So we
Dominic
can
too. You
still
just missed Dominic.
and Dominic, yes.
You're gonna say
uh,
most of them. Yeah, and you can check out the Patreon, patreon.com/make it. And like I said, we're gonna restructure some things this year.
yeah. Patreon made a bunch of changes to pricing, and they also changed. So if you subscribe on Android versus iOS gets a
Mm-hmm.
bigger cut and stuff like that. So um, we're and now there's a free tier. So you
Yeah.
can just follow us on the free tier. You don't get the perks like joining the Discord, but we'll try to figure out what kind of perks we can give anyone who does follow us, and
Yeah.
maybe we can do Patreon live stream for the free tier, like to all encompass, like maybe once a year or something, just to say thanks for following us or something.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't really worked out the details on that yet because this is a lot of these changes came over the summer, and we haven't really spent some time to review them. So
Yeah. And you guys really do keep the lights on. You pay for help pay for the services like the websites, the streaming things, the subscription fees, basically, and
yeah,
we sure appreciate y'all. But yeah, look for some changes just in how we deliver some of our bonuses. Um, but yeah, you can check out patreon.com. That's the 3D Make It. Check out the membership tiers, and yeah, we appreciate you. So,
yeah,
um, I wrote a title today, twice actually, but well, Greg wrote it once and I
yeah.
wrote it once.
I just copied and pasted
But it'll be good. It'll be good. So, what the cloud? What the cloud? 3D
with the
printers on your
cloud.
network is kind of what we're going for today. Um, now, uh, obviously there are. Let me just get the thing screen here. Share. I can't see any of the things, Greg. You're gonna have to
Oh,
bring it up. Yeah. So these are examples. Ooh. So left is the Creality K2, and right is the Bamboo
coming
Labs.
soon.
Well,
Now
it's
out.
out. I'm pretty
Wow.
sure some people got their shipments.
Yeah.
At least we don't have one person that has one.
All right,
But
but I haven't seen most regular people with them yet.
truth, maybe we look at here. Hold on. Okay, there. This one's out. This there. And open image in a new tab. Huh? Ooh, okay, there. That
Oh,
one's
there
out.
you go.
Okay, that's a K1C. And the K1 Max. So we have kind of like these flagship printers coming out, and Greg actually has a really good example of what a company can do to be forward thinking. But one thing that these flagship printers have in common, and one thing that like we've done it with this before, right? Octoprint. We've talked a lot about Octoprint and how to set it up, how to
And
use it,
managing
man,
your printer, you mean?
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we talked about Clipper a little bit last year.
We did quite a bit on Clipper.
Right.
We need to probably finish off some stuff. We've had lots of people inquire about it, but yeah.
And then we had like, here, I'm gonna do this. Windows lets me do this, and then I'll pick where'd it go? This one. No. Hey, I did it. Okay. But like one thing that's in common with lots of these services is something, whether that's like a Raspberry Pi if you're using straight up like Clipper on a printer that didn't have Clipper before, or
Yeah.
Octoprint with a printer that has like Marlin on it.
Right.
Or you can even use Octoprint with some of the open source CNC stuff if you really tried. On these flagship printers, one thing that's all kind of in common is usually they have some sort of network access.
Yeah. Or an
Right?
app.
An app. Yeah. I reminds me of the episode of Rick and Morty where it's like, do you want to develop an app with me? And there's this little alien that's trying to take over the world that wants to make an app. He's a cute guy. Squirrel. Anyway, so we have these 3D printers and we have them on our network. And recently, like we've run into a situation like in our real life where we had to have some thought and conversation around what access and what does it mean to have these printers on our network. So Greg has the X1
E.
E. Is it CE or just E?
No, X1E.
Okay, so and that printer and Greg can kind of like talk to it more too, but it's very similar to the X1, but they've actually made some upgrade changes to
Yeah.
how the networking module works on
Yeah,
it.
it has a physical switch that you can switch between Wi-Fi, Ethernet, both or off. So you can actually completely uncouple it from being an online printer. I did verify because we briefly talked about it last week that you can do off-network firmware updates.
So is that and that? But I
You put it on
think
the USB, plug it in, and
yeah, but I think that's
or
just for
SD
the
card.
X series. I don't know if it works for the P1
I
series
on
or the
this
P
one, I've
series.
confirmed that it works.
Okay, so I'm still not 100% sure if it works on the P series, um, but that's something we will find out.
Yeah, when you
I
go
know.
onto the screen on this one and you go to the firmware updates section, it has a link that you click on to do manual update, and then it says insert SD card.
All right, so like that's great because that lets that printer. And spoiler alert, both the printers on the left hand, the K2, K1C, and the K1 Max. It's very actually similar. There's one big difference between the K1C though and the other two, and that is that they don't. K1 doesn't have, or K1C, K1 doesn't have the Ethernet port. It's all driven by Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
So,
But the Max has an Ethernet port, correct?
yeah.
Yes.
So, like, there is ways to get the firmware. In fact, Creality encourages you to do it with the USB key. In some cases, and if you've used the oh goodness, I'm gonna butcher the name here. I think it's the um, Creality update and install helper script. Maybe
Yikes.
I don't know. Anyway, Kaiua, but for Creality, and you can reset the firmware before you do the updating to your scripts and such. So another big difference between something like the Bamboo and the Creality stuff on the screen And I can't speak to like the like I know Anycubic has the Cobra printer, and there's a few other like it, but like some of the bigger difference though is Creality. People make enough noise and Creality goes, okay, we'll do that for you. So when they first launched the K series, which is their Clipper kind of flagshipy stuff,
Yeah.
um they locked the firmware down to the Creality blend of
Yeah,
fluid,
that was
basically,
really
right?
annoying. People figured out how to hack it, and then they opened it up.
Yeah, and they're like,
So,
whatever, you can have it. So now there's a button in the screen that lets you open that up. And
which I
then
think makes a lot of sense because it basically is running fluid. Is that right, David?
essentially,
It's
yep,
it's a Creality basically forked or ish
yeah,
fluid and
borrowed.
and and put their skin on top of it, and
Mhm.
then you can then expose the back end with that like little trick that David talked about, and then add a full-on clipper if you interface, and I think you can even add mainsail if you want, right?
Yeah, you can pick whatever you want. Um, and there's even more stuff that you can add, like camp tools and other repos to make other plugins work. And
The
it's
the the only real restriction is it's not a full-on Pi, right? So you have a little more memory restriction. I would say is probably the biggest thing, right?
you do and you don't. So like, and that's gonna wrap it back around to the networking and the cloud very quickly here. But um, yes, on the K1 series, they use a smaller controller-ish, not by much. The Creality printers have a lot of space on them.
Okay, good.
For most stuff, like I had Clipper and Marlin running and still had plenty of room. Or sorry, Clipper and
Mainsail,
Fluid and Mainsail, that's the word.
yes.
Um, and then like installed all the web servery stuff that goes with it and Jix. And then the Bamboo series, the X series does have a better controller in them than the P1. And by better,
Yeah,
I just mean larger.
it works different though because it doesn't have Clipper, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's a closed source software firmware, but like somebody open sourced it for them very quickly.
Right, and you can put a different firmware on here. I'm still running stock. It's working really well, so
Yeah.
I haven't felt the need to switch. Um, yeah. So
And then that there brings us back now to the topic du jour. The firmware works great on all of these, actually, out of the box. Again, I really wish I could speak to the other manufacturers' flagship printers. I'm sure they're similar, but like we're specifically talking about the ones that we've used. So the the firmware on all of these printers is designed to talk to a cloud. Hello,
yep.
cloud.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Is that you? So cloud's a fancy word
It is
for
me.
server in the internet somewhere. Cloud, you sound like Greg.
No, no, no. It's me,
No, no,
Cloud.
no. Cloud. Very cloud. And so by and this is where it gets tricky because the cloud is the way these printers were designed to operate. They do
Yeah,
very well.
natively, right? Like they
Yeah.
it's not like a add-on like we did in the past, right? So
Yeah. So like when we look at something like Octoprint, we control that through our network. It leaves our network only if we let it leave. There's a few apps and add-ons you can get that send your stuff to the cloud and then you can kind of talk back and forth to your printer, the VPN, that stuff. So the question really becomes like when we hook these printers to our network, even if it's our network or somebody else's network, should we run them on the cloud? And Greg, should we run them on the internet and let them do their thing?
I think it depends on your risk tolerance because um, a home network you may be more tolerant of what you connect because I mean we have light switches and this and that, um,
Hmm.
and and I would say if they weren't updating the firmware on a weekly or monthly basis like they do, which a lot of them do,
Yeah.
I would be more concerned maybe because, for example, a light switch doesn't really get updated that much. You have to actually go and run the
Yeah.
firmware, and then eventually there may be like, I don't want to support that anymore. And then you could have a botnet running in your network if it got infected, right? Whereas in these cases, so far I say, they're supported and working and
Hmm.
patched. But on a corporate network, you have a lot more security concerns about your data and what's kind of devices are on your network to be concerned about. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit different when you're the sole person making the choice. Whereas if you were bringing something and you just want to use it in your network and you don't own your network.
Yeah, and that comes around to like another piece of the cloud. So we do have the security and the risk tolerance and the appetite that you carry for risk in your home. And honestly, lots of people are pretty low. Uh, the home assistants are everywhere, like you said, light switches, locks, plugs. Um,
Yep.
the other thing too is what you are sending to a cloud gets digested by a cloud server.
They
So
can
like
sell it.
if you're doing a print job that's kind of like gonna be like used for industry, and you don't want it to get public, guess what you shouldn't do, right? Like
Hi, Gary.
Gary, I just noticed. Hello, Gary. Um, but you probably shouldn't send your print job around the cloud, even off network. It's dubious sometimes because there's this thing called adversary in the middle. Used to be called man in the middle, but now they're adversary, right? And so then anytime data or leaves your network, it can be intercepted, especially if it's going to servers that you don't know. Bamboo Labs has an American server chain, but how long? We don't know, right? I know exactly where the Creality ones go because I tracked them down once on our corporate edge. And let's just put it this way: with all the servers from China as a country block, these printers still worked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you think
So,
all the data is going to China, spoiler alert.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. We know that the servers are located probably in a Amazon cloud or something, right?
Yeah,
So
AWS.
so so they might be hosted in the United States, let's say. Um, but once the data gets to them, that doesn't mean that it stays in the
It
United
doesn't.
States, right?
Um,
So that's the one thing. Like I mean, I don't care if you're TikTok or you're whoever, you can have your data and you can have it hosted in the United States, but unless you have some sort of guarantee that it will not be exfiltrated out to to your parent company somewhere else.
yeah.
So it
And
really depends, right?
it's an interesting thing you bring that up or mention that.
So
But
Gary says, does it really matter where the server is? Your data is in other people's hands anyway, and that's kind of where I'm going with that, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
because yeah, you send your data to them, and I guess it's trust, right? Netflix has a lot of my data. Amazon has a lot of my data, right? So it depends on, do you think they're good stewards of your data, and is the data important enough in your mind that it's okay that they have that data?
and so that comes to reading. Honestly, when you're using these printers and deciding if they are suitable for you to use on the cloud, reading is your friend, and both of them do comply with a lot of the European. So it's GDPR is
Yes.
the acronym, and which means you could say, "Hey, I want my all my information and I want it gone." And these guys say they do it. Now that being said, all of your information is out there. Like Gary said, it's not a scary statement to make that. It's just a truth. Like I think we all get the texts and emails and phone calls for like cleaning your vents, or you have a package that mysteriously appeared, or you have this
Would you
random,
like an upgrade on your iPhone?
right? Like all of these kind of things are because your data was exposed somewhere. And there's some things you could do about it, but that's not what this stream's about. Spoiler alert. So here, here's the thing for me. Um, uh, I use, and I'm actually going to try it out because I haven't used it yet on the K1. I'm going to do it today just to see. But like all of my printers are cloud and internet facing at home for these flagships. All of these printers can do their firmware updates over the air, which makes it actually really convenient for me as a user, right?
Absolutely, me too.
Yeah, all of us. So the less barrier to use, the better. But then with less barrier to use, obviously becomes less security, right? That's just the game we play. There's that
Eh,
trade-off.
right, because there could be a gap in their patching to a vulnerability, and it depends on how diligent they are. Like, hopefully, they have a whole security department that's qualified to say, hey, you guys need to tighten up this code and then get on it, right?
Yeah. And like the biggest problem that Creality has had in the past hasn't been like their cloud security. It has been their intellectual property security problems. Cause when they first launched like the cloud for like these K series, they actually like people just wrote scripts because they could hook to the Thingiverse API and it just took all of the stuff,
I
right?
I,
And that
I
was
don't
the
I don't
issue.
was that Creality or was that
Yeah.
Bamboo that did that?
So they both had import features. Bamboo did it less, but they both did it.
Well, yeah,
But
I think Bamboo and Prusa had some fights for a while,
yeah,
and then
because they
they came
focused
up with
on
a
protocols.
another way of doing it where you have to. I went through the process to move my models to so that they have a copy of them on Maker World or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And so you have to go through and you have to authorize, you have to confirm that you're doing it and which models. And then even went through a process where they looked at my models, and one of them they said you don't comply because you didn't upload X, Y, or Z. So I had to actually resubmit it so that it
Hmm.
it complied with their copyright stuff, and it wasn't like so. It's they there was lots of growing pains in the beginning, let's say.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, there still is because when you put something and not even like an STL model on the internet, that's not free, eventually it becomes free because it just gets digested into this big machine and everybody starts sharing it eventually.
Yeah.
So that's why keeping some of the stuff as low cost, especially to enter the market is a good thing for them. But when we look at Bamboo and Creality, like those platforms literally exploded in a 3-year period. Right. I forget the release date of the Bamboo Lab printer, but they were both during like the COVID-ish
20
time.
I think it was 2021, 2020, and then
And
now they're like
yeah, it's ubiquitous. And
huge.
other
You
countries
your
or companies
camera
are copying, and
your camera went away.
I mean it does that sometimes.
I'm just letting you know.
I'm just
You're
a
still
stream.
you're
There,
still
I'm back.
well,
What? Yeah, just
kind
be
of.
big. Hello.
If I stop sharing, you won't be big.
I'm just gonna stop and restart the video.
All
Nope.
right.
I'm gonna. Okay, hold on. Yep. I'm gonna restart. I mean, we don't have to share anymore. Right? Like it's just
Okay.
printers. We can be big
Well,
again. I'll
now you're
fix my
above.
video. I'll
Here,
fix it.
I'll just do this,
I'll fix
and
it. I'll
I'll be
fix it.
big
Yeah.
until your video
Welcome.
comes back.
Welcome to Giant Greg, everyone.
Uh,
There we go.
but yeah, so it's he fixed it. Come on,
That are
show on the street.
ubiquitous that
There
came
we are.
out during a time where people, spoiler alert, were sitting at home and like it didn't even matter that there was an API. models would have went. So let's talk more about like how these companies interact, because we all know that I think it was last summer, um, the Bamboo Cloud crashed. And remember, Bamboo Cloud is just a server, so let's just say the server crashed, and when it crashed, it sent it sent a bunch of print start commands to a bunch of Bamboo Lab printers, and they
Yeah,
all started printing.
yeah.
And
So
some of them were damaged because some of them were like A1 minis trying to print like the P1S or X1 file, right? So the
right.
printer was out, and that's kind of like the um that can happen, and how we can
Well,
mitigate it, they did with firmware. So
Prusa was for a long time, and I think they might still do it, allowing you to put G code
mhm.
on their site. And okay, but if you take G code that was compiled for not your device, like David's saying here, like happened in the Bamboo case, bad things could happen. Malicious people could do malicious things with the G code and have it, you know, run something somewhere where it shouldn't.
And while the Bamboo Lab problem wasn't malicious in nature, it was actually from, if you read the whole reports and the debrief, it was just a like it just happened. It was a mistake. They found the problem, they patched it out. It shouldn't happen again. But it did happen, and that kind of ruined the trust of a lot of people for bamboo
it's
printers.
but it's one of those things though, right? It can happen to any business, right? You see it happen to car companies, you see it happen to other companies, and I guess um, if they still make a great product and they do the right thing and make all the right moves to rectify the situation, rather than, let's say, potentially hiding it, that's I think that shows a little more, I don't know, trust in a company because they're at least trying to do the right thing. Um, I think it's when a company tries to hide it or isn't as forthcoming as maybe they should be. You know.
Yeah, it all comes down, especially on the IP and like those kind of like technical glitches, to how the response is. Did the company say, "Hey, this happened, we're sorry," or did they sweep it under the rug and wait like 4 years to tell you about it? And most of them so far, I think, have been pretty good and upfront. Now, the I think the last thing, and this is the thing we don't talk about a whole lot, is how safe are the apps to use on your phone? And the reason I say that is we all have, like we've talked about connecting the printer to your network, right? We've talked
Mm-hmm.
about like the firmware updates that come to your printer. Those haven't been poisoned yet that I know of. So like that whole OTA system they got is working pretty good. But when we look at the app on your phone, and Greg's holding up I think it's the Handy app, looks like. Uh, you have to read a little bit onto what making an account means, and on the iPhones you can do that, but they do, like Greg's showing you his phone. Well, he was, but he's showing your phone. But like it shows you the video, what's printing, all of that information,
It gives
which
you
means
notifications, so it's transmitting from here. Only I have to request it, but there there is a communication between my device and the cloud portion, and then the cloud portion will connect to your app. So the cloud is your intermediary between your printer and your app to allow these advanced features, right?
yeah. And back in the day when we were talking about Octoprint and forwarding or port forwarding or VPNing through the network, we used lots of apps in concert with that. I still have one on my phone. Um, I
But
forget what it's called now,
that's
but
a little bit different in the fact that um, you're exposing a hole basically for their API or whatever the app calls directly, typically depending on how the app works, to your network.
Right.
So you actually don't have a cloud portion per se in that scenario.
Right.
Um, so you are in control to a point
I was gonna
of
say, are you?
all of your stuff. Now there could be diagnostic information or something that they might be collecting in the app to send to their cloud.
Right.
Depending on their terms of service, and you have exposed. Hopefully, you've secured it, but you've exposed your personal network with an open port, so that
Yes.
someone can go directly into your network. Whereas the cloud-based solution, you're not opening ports to your printer. It's going to the cloud and kind of uploading data to the cloud, and then you retrieve the data from the cloud, so you're not directly connecting to your printer. So there's a little bit of obfuscation almost in that for security wise, but you still have to
So
trust the
I'm
cloud.
glad you used the word ports. Let's talk about the word ports in that context because I wanted to anyway. Um, so like yeah, when you port forward through your firewall, a specific port's open, but you can obfuscate that port. There's things you can do to make it
Yeah.
more secure. But these printers that we have on our home networks, when they talk to their cloud, they are going out port 443 or 80. So which is just the
Hopefully,
standard internet ports.
hopefully 443.
And I would say that security, yeah, security by obfuscation only works to a point because I mentioned the adversary in the middle before. If somebody's actually that advanced into your network and monitoring back and forth, and there is one person that is, and that is your ISP, right? They
Yeah.
could see all the transit, and that's why people are like, oh, get Express VPN and Surfshark. Okay, well then those servers can see everything you're doing, right? It doesn't
Uh,
end.
yeah.
But when we
It
look at the
yeah.
bamboo printers, the or the Creality or any of those cloud connected printers that have that video stream like Greg was showing, they do use one port to aggregate all that information out. So when we look at port forwarding in a firewall versus just using the cloud, Shodan doesn't see the Creality like the K1 sees the Bamboo Labs as just that device. So if you were to go on and look for say Octoprint in North America, you will find thousands and
Thousands.
thousands and thousands of exposed Octoprint with camera on with default passwords rolling, right? So to obfuscate that, you send your traffic out through 443, right? And that's what these guys are doing. And that's great from that standpoint. And hopefully there's more encryption along the way before like the API
A-
gets your camera feed. We don't know that.
And hopefully they're using like we just went we're going through a process at work making sure all our devices that we have control of are a little more secure. So hopefully they're using the more secure cipher suites
Yeah.
in their product, and that's the one thing when it's closed, for example, like the bamboo, you
Mm-hmm.
don't know for sure whether they're following industry best practice of like disabling weaker cipher suites. So if you have SSL, like we're talking HTTPS, um, is it using TLS 1.2 or 1.3? And are the
Yeah.
older versions turned off? Because if they're not turned off, that's potentially exposing problems. So
Well, and then you get into the technology argument of like SSH, is great, but lots of the stuff now these printers do use SSH, so it's not even worth mentioning that Telnet problem. But I can
yeah,
tell you, just from searching Canada right now for Bamboo Lab printers or K1C series printers, there's none that are showing up on the Shodan network. But if you look for Octoprint, there's 351 in Alberta.
So
So
Gary says, "Oh, the internet's going to see all my numerous failed prints." But seriously, change your password. So he's got a
yeah.
point. So like if you're rolling your own and you're doing Octoprint and whatnot, when you set it up, it warns you that you're using a default. If you're using it took them a while to implement this, but now it warns you that you're using a default password, and they recommend changing it. Because I mean, you may feel that you're on your own network, right? And okay, I don't need to put I could use Raspberry. Who cares?
Hi,
It's on my own
Raspberry. That's
network,
cool.
right? Um, yeah,
One of the
you probably
biggest,
should
like,
change it.
yeah, and the
That's
biggest
just an
threat
extra step.
we have like at home isn't actually like exposing our data, but like even these printers are just IoT devices, Internet of Things, right? Like they have a small microcomputer controller. They like unlike your um it's not unlike um your plugs, your lights, right? Or that thing.
Yeah, this is
Uh
this is just an ESP32.
yes.
There's two different models here. Built-in Wi-Fi, built-in Bluetooth. You can add to your project, do some really cool stuff. But here's the thing: if the code isn't up to date,
Uh-oh.
this has a little web server in it.
And the thing that we're most at risk for, like, and it happened to me early pandemic, I actually found, but like a device in your network is easily accessible to people that know. In fact, like there's an ethical hacker that hacked like all the Google Homes or Amazon Alexa. I forget which one it was now, but it just takes access to those devices, and then you join what's called the botnet. And the botnet is, like Greg mentioned a botnet before, but botnet is when attackers can take over large numbers of these little tiny computers or
Yep.
your computer, right? Internet,
Yeah,
like an
it's
extension,
anything. It's
but like your
anything.
printers. And once they can control them, they can actually start working together and perform other tasks against people, like denial of service and that kind of
And
thing.
yeah, you may not even notice that it's there because they may just put enough of a piece of code in that when they
Mm.
need it, they can use it to broadcast. They can send it kind of a command and say, "Hey, um, everyone that has my code, attack this IP range," and all of a sudden, maybe all your light switches in your house, whatever, it could be
Yeah.
anything. It could be your home router, it could be your Telus router, it could be whatever, could be a pop machine at Costco. It doesn't matter. But if it was not secure and it was part of this botnet, it now potentially in the old days you might have hundreds of devices, but now you can have millions of devices that are flooding and doing denial of service or whatever their vector of choice is. So it's kind of interesting.
And unfortunately, our printers aren't excluded from that list. But the good
No,
news again is
they're more
modern
updated.
routers, not your ISP routers, not the one you got from free from your internet service provider, but modern routers will detect and try to do their best to help you. So like mine will actually uh
Mitigate.
mitigate it, report it, and then I can go and find the infected device. I had an Alexa that was cancel. Okay. I, I had one of those that was
You almost had
I,
Dr. Pepper all over my
I know,
microphone.
right? But I had one of those things that was actually compromised. I found it because of the router report, and I was able to like fix the problem before it went further inside of the network.
And I'm just as bad for that. I have a way of making an internet things. For example, my I have home router mesh one, and it has a feature where I can turn on the Internet of Things network
Hmm.
to put all my devices so that they're not on my main network, to help mitigate potential problems. Now, have I spent the time to go through all my stuff and do it? No.
So
But
the
I
trick
probably should,
the trick with
right?
those things is turn it on, because then when you get new things, they go on, and eventually, you know, it's like slowly adding. And lots of routers support guest networks too,
Yep.
if you don't have an IoT. So like Gary asked, any recommendations for good routers, and like yes, couple.
Everyone has their personal preferences. Like Asus makes really good routers. I've got I've had the Eneros. I've had TP Links. Like I've worked with a lot of them, and they're especially the ones that most of them auto update themselves now, which is really good. In the past, I've had D-Links, and they didn't auto update.
Don't buy D-Link. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, don't
but
like.
but but
It's
I
not
think
great.
you've had Asus in the past, correct?
I still have Asus.
Yeah, yeah,
Asus are stateful, especially when you get into like the entry line gaming stuff, but the other things are too. So the Asus routers are stateful, which means you actually can get logs and insight as to what app my device is actually accessing, and how many
yeah.
times, and all that stuff. It does VLANing, it does guest networking and IoT
And
networking.
so Gary, just to be clear, so a guest network or an IoT network is basically just a VLAN. So it's a VLAN by another name.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's if you the nice thing about the modern routers and security devices is you don't have to figure out all the ins and outs and wrap your head completely around VLANs. Um, you can just implement them by a name like Internet of Things or Guest Network and put your devices on it. So that's the nice thing. So if you're like, oh, I really need to understand this, they made it easy for home users depending on your technical level. If you are a networking guy and you want to do the advanced stuff, there are a lot of products like David was saying where you can add as many networks and VLANs. You can have your own personal switches in your own network at home and build your own VLANs and stuff that are off, like that are only internal to your network too. So there's a number of ways that you can go about to use those features and stuff to make either your printing experience better or whatnot. I'm very happy with my printing experience, even straight out of the box from Bamboo so far. And I didn't think I'd like the app as much as it is. I do. It's nice to get a notification that your printing's done. I had it detect spaghetti the other day. Like it's like one of my prints failed, so it stopped it before it just kept going. Whereas in the past, even with Octoprint and the spaghetti detective, it wasn't as good. It's now I think they've gotten better. I haven't tried the plugin lately.
I don't know about
but my first
ago.
my first experience with the spaghetti detective was it didn't work all that great. But maybe that was also a configuration thing on my end, or it was just early on in the development, because it's definitely gotten better.
Circling in on that, if you wanted something that's like kind of like prosumer, Ubiquiti stuff is like completely configurable when it comes to being able to use it in your home and VLANing and tagging and all that stuff. And it's not expensive. Like, okay, it is expensive, but not when you compare it to actual enterprise gear that's like $90,000 for a firewall.
Well, it's pretty amazing now that you can get. I know we've diverged quite a bit from 3D printing.
Well, he asked about routers,
but you can get 10 gig networking equipment, like 10 gig base T that runs over Cat 6. So you can have 10 gig or multi gig. If you're, because not all computers can handle the full, like some of them can do 1.4 5, some
Yep.
of them go 2.5, some of them can do 5, and some of them could do 10, depending on how new it is, right? But you know, it's one of those things you can get, and Black Friday's coming up. You can get pretty inexpensive multi-gig devices now.
Yeah, but
And then some people can even get multi-gig service to their houses now,
I can.
and
Yeah.
then and whatnot. So it's pretty interesting. Anyway,
It's, but again, like if you want to drop us online separate from this, we can continue it. Stacy comments, much like you do, the app just makes things so easy, and even I can use it.
yes,
Um,
that's true.
and
It's a convenience thing right now, where before it was you had to be a little bit nerdy and a lot more techy to really be able to troubleshoot even leveling the printer, let alone whatever.
yeah, and now it just
They've
works.
simplified it to the point where it's a toaster almost. Almost.
So,
It's
so
a high tech toaster.
in summation, to conclude the topic du jour and the cloud and printers on your network, the big takeaways, again, Greg said it first. What's your risk tolerance? You're probably more tolerant of the risk at home than you are at work.
Yeah.
What
I think,
and then
yeah,
if it's online and you're using it,
yeah.
the app is accessible and nice. Read the ULIs, be comfortable with the agreements. I'm gonna try, like I said, I'm gonna hook up the Creality one today, and see what it's all about. I haven't used it yet, but
Yeah, and
I
you've
want
had
to.
your printer for quite a while too.
Yeah, it's the last piece like that I haven't played with, right? Because I think there've been about 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah.
I don't know how long, but give or take. So, but like those are the big takeaways. Is the cloud a good place for your 3D printer? The answer is, as always, probably, but you have to decide.
It depends, and it depends on you,
Yep.
right? Because you have to think about, are you comfortable with it? Um,
Are the
and we've
apps
been
worth the risk? 100%.
Yeah,
A
and
hundred percent.
we've been saying Black Friday, but Singles Day is coming up. If you're not familiar with Singles Day, uh, tomorrow I think is Singles Day, where it's 11/11. And I do believe that's where an AliExpress has their
Yeah.
big.
It's
It's a big Eurasia or Asia, South Asia kind of thing, but we can benefit it here if you are an AliExpress or what's some of the other ones? There's
well, like Alibaba's the parent, Timu.
no, yeah, Timu probably does it, and
I don't know,
there was a
honestly.
couple other places did it, but
That's outside
you
my scope as a 3D printing nerd.
you can find some good 3D printing stuff deals.
Deals,
So
stuff
yes,
and deals. But yes, thank you for hanging out. Stay tuned to the Patreon.
yeah,
Uh,
we'll give some
if you're
updates
in
on
there.
that.
If you're not a patron, you want to be a patron, it's patreon.com/3dmakeit. You can get all of our information at
Yeah,
www.3dmakeit.ca. You have to use www. Um,
yeah, you can be a free Patreon. Just if you're on Patreon, you can join us and follow us. But 3dmakeit.ca is our website where we
just
have
said that.
all our other stuff as well,
Yeah, just said it.
and our contest
The other,
is
remember
officially
to
up.
like, share, subscribe, and do the things. But
Yes.
thank you for everybody that came. Share the stream around. We'll probably podcast it because it came from the one that lets us podcast it. We'll slice it up a bit. And yeah, we have a podcast. Check out the podcast. It has like 3 episodes. It's fantastic. All right. On that happy note, enjoy the rest of your Sundays, everybody, and have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.